a little attitude for all you out here in white bread land. It's 10 o'clock. Do you care where your parents are?
So, Pump Up the Volume is a coming-of-age drama about a high school student who runs a pirate radio station and causes a huge uproar. The movie is directed and written by Alan Moyle, who is famous for directing Empire Records and New Waterford Girl, and he's a Canadian director. Also, the movie stars Christian Slater as Mark Hunter, aka Happy Harry Hardon, or just Hard Harry.
Triple H.
Triple H.
Yeah.
And it also actually has the screen debut of Samantha Mathis as Nora, his fellow high school friend. You and I were talking about doing a podcast on this film. I've only seen it once. You said you've seen it once, and we're like, so you and I both recently watched this, and what is your take watching it, especially as an adult?
Well, the first time, I didn't remember too much about it, but just a few catchphrases from the film, and just, scenes here and there. But watching it a second time years later as a middle-aged man, it really was great, and it was nice to watch a film where it just didn't have a lot of bullshit in it. It was more like, the messages were real in this film. When they talked about suicide, it really did hit home, and it made you really think about it.
Yeah, what I really love about this film, it's a movie about teenagers for teenagers, and you didn't see a lot of movies of that kind back in those days. Also, the movie was never patronizing or sentimental like a lot of comedies where, you watch Revenge of the Nerds or even Pretty in Pink. Great movie, but the movie wasn't condescending. The movie has some heavy issues like suicide, and it doesn't steer away from it or fluff it up. There's a character that is gay, and they didn't make fun of him. He's a normal character, and he's angry like he's a teenager. A lot of them are angry.
Yeah, imagine that. Even in the 90s when kids were coming out as gay, they still had a place in society.
Yeah, no, definitely. And this is good to watch it even like at our age, because it brought back so many like memories and emotions just going through our life, the good and the bad. Also, this movie, I believe, has really developed a cult retrospective love to it. Not only, when this movie first came out, it underperformed at the box office. It didn't really do too much. But today, I can see it really resonating because, it kind of predates blogs, podcasts as a way of teens dealing with their social anxieties. You see today, you can go on YouTube and people are talking about anxieties and the stresses being an adolescent.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, so we just wanted to, there's just a couple things that you and I kind of were talking about that stood out after watching this movie after all these years. So anyways, the movie begins and you hear a receiver, a voice talking about how everything in America is fucked up. The environment, school, the government. This person is talking about the state of things.
Yeah, and he's talking to his peers, but they just don't know who it is.
No, he's talking on 92 FM.
Right, yeah.
And what does he say? Tonight, I'm as horny as a 10-peckered owl. I've never heard that term, but...
I have a 10-peckered house.
Yeah, so the voice refers to himself as Hard Harry, a.k.a. Happy Harry Hardon, a.k.a. Mark Hunter. And I like how after he's done talking, he reminds you to eat your cereal with a fork and do homework in the dark. So he's giving out some sound advice, kids.
Yeah.
And then you get this cheesy 90s opening title. Just music blasting, and you see the logo, and it takes you then the screenshot to a bus that is kind of setting up things at a school. You see in this bus people passing a recording, and so you're like, back then we had tapes. And then when the bus stops, you see this VIP teacher rounding up students to take them to the principal's office. Already off the bat, some kids they're having a hard time.
Yeah, and when I seen that, the principal or whatever, he like grabbed that chick's arm like pretty viciously and was just like dragging her to the office.
And that chick turned out to be pregnant.
Yes.
So not too nice by
That's
him.
brutal, yeah.
Yeah, and then we see a scene of two girls talking, and it's actually Nora and her friend, and they're talking about this guy that has this satellite radio station, and they're just kind of talking about the perception of him, like he's a sex maniac, he's on every night at 10 o'clock, so kind of setting the scene for Hard Harry. When we get introduced to Christian Slater as Hard Harry, I like the setting. He's in his basement. And the first thing he kind of talks about is his wild cherry Diet Pepsi. I've never even, ever heard of that.
No, that was one soft drink I never tried.
I don't know, was that just an American?
It might have been. I know we got, cherry Cokes and stuff up here back in the day, but I don't remember wild cherry Pepsi. Yeah.
So his basement is just a treasure trove of stuff to kind of look at. And then he talks about his blackjack gum. And these pieces of items that he's talking about actually plays a role later in the film.
Right.
And then we get the classic song everybody knows by Leonard Cohen, played on a vinyl record.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
And of course, because this is the 90s, we see him smoking a cigarette.
Everybody smoked.
Yeah, everyone. I think in the 90s, kids, they started smoking, in grade 6, 7?
Oh, probably.
And I love this little tidbit. He has a photo of a iguana lizard, and he actually has that iguana lizard as a pet as well.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And it's not just like a picture of it, like a photograph. It's like a picture from a magazine or a poster. I'm like, holy cow. And then you see kind of this individual has letters from people that he's reading. And one more thing I have to point out, you see a little wind-up penis toy with feet.
Yes,
it's like a foot boner.
Yeah.
So this movie is laced with lots of phallic stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, I always thought back in the day that Christian Slater kind of reminded me of young Jack Nicholson. People are talking metaphors should shampoo my garage.
Yeah, you could be onto something there.
Yeah. So then in this scene, he's talking about his parents, saying they sold out, and they don't get it. Of course, most parents don't get it, right?
No, they never get it. Not when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
They never understand. They've never been there before.
Yeah. So to kind of end this scene, he kind of basically goes into pretending to jerk off.
Oh, yes.
And I remember there was some student there in the background says, man, he must have a lot of hair on his palms. What's crazy is that this guy, people are sending him letters. And, I guess people just want to reach out to someone, right?
Yeah, this is legit the early days of podcasting, and by using snail mail to get your message across. Yeah.
And then he kind of gives out his, where he picks up his fan mail, box 2710, U.S. Mail, Paradise Hills, Arizona, 84012. So I don't know, all you out there, if you want to write to this guy, maybe he's still active and operating.
I hope so.
Yeah. And then they kind of go on to say that he may broadcast for 5 minutes or 5 hours.
Oh, yeah, I did notice that his air times did vary a lot. So when he did come on right at 10 o'clock, the kids would mark their watches or clocks to him, and sometimes he'd be on for 5 minutes, and like you said, 5 hours, 5 minutes, and so they were eager to get to the next show for sure.
Yeah. So then we kind of, throughout this movie, it kind of sets up Hard Harry and the school and the kids, and you see the faculty interacting with the kids, so you're seeing something is off.
Yeah, I want to touch on his character a little bit. He kind of had a multiple personality, like, I won't say multiple personality, but in a way where he kind of just took off the reins and went free on the radio and talked like he was like this huge bravado of a guy who had so much confidence in him. But then when he went to school, he'd walk with his head down and avoid eye contact with anybody and just kind of stick to himself, and like he just really couldn't handle the person-to-person interactions. But then being on the radio allowed him to spread his wings, and just be that person that he wanted to be.
Yeah, that radio and the mic and at home in his basement was like basically his sword and shield.
Yeah, he could hide behind it and be anybody he wanted.
Yeah, he could be, because when he was out, he couldn't even look at people. He even says, like, throughout the movie, I can't talk.
Yeah.
And it's really quite something that Nora, I really like this character in this movie because she's kind of like a little bit of a sleuth. Like, she's trying to figure out, because they know from his descriptions in his radio station that he's going to the Triple H school.
That's his first mistake, that he says he goes to that school. But maybe in hindsight, maybe eventually he did want to get found out.
Yeah, and they kind of figure, okay, who he is, but then her friend says, well, all the guys here are geeks, so it can't be Hard Harry.
Yeah, that's right.
He's cool. Like this guy's helping them get through their life in a way.
Yeah,
like because you see, like, from the beginning of the movie, in fields or in other like teenagers' homes, them listening to Hard Harry. So he's captured the kids around that community.
Yeah, because his bandwidth was only so far, and they had to all drive, like, I believe there was like a baseball field they drove to or something, where they all parked together and just sat outside their cars and played their radios, and they could listen to him from there. Yeah, but they could. But if you went further away in the city, you couldn't hear them. So it was a very select few blocks, I think, that they could hear them.
Yeah, like, it wasn't the best feed in certain spots. So so people, it was almost like it was a gathering, and I can remember this as a teenager. There was places we'd always gather just to get away. Not like our life was difficult as these kids, but you just want to get away. You want to.
And his audience was really vast as well. It wasn't just like the same type of punk that was listening to him. It was the really good, the girl who got straight A's. She was listening to him in her bedroom, and then it was the punky kind kids that were hanging out at the fields on their cars and sitting on the hoods and just listening. It was every type of kid that were listening, including the closet gay kid who was very self-conscious about life and all that stuff.
Yeah, you saw a whole eclectic range of people. Like, there's actually like a kind of heavy set guy throughout the movie, and he's kind of like, you could tell, like, he helped them jig that radio or like the overhead and stuff. So you see all kinds of people. I love the heavyset kid because you see his bedroom. He has all these like Run DMC, all these 80s and 90s rappers, and it's just you got every scene that they cut to of these students told you something about these kids' life. And I just like how just a simple shot, you got all you needed to see. So you see Harry, a.k.a. Mark, operating as this guy, and then when he goes to school, he's this turtle person that's
pretty much
and by himself. And then when he's recording, I like his second recording, because then he kind of really starts to you dive into his disillusion. He had to move from New York to the suburb of Phoenix, Arizona. Yeah, he's got no friends. His parents bought him this ham radio to talk to his friends in New York. My question is, so phones don't reach long distance, or could we just think, well, maybe the long distance bill, so it'd be just cheaper, probably, right? Yeah,
for sure. It was to get around that, because long distance was like a bucket minute or something that you were calling far away, probably.
Yeah. And he talks about this, and you see this really in the movie as the movie goes. The authority, like the teachers, the police, or anybody else, they have a hard time finding his identity. Like, and watching this movie again, you're like, how is this so hard? Like, he's got to be a relative of someone who works at the school. Like, how many school members just move there and they give their kid a ham radio? Like, come on. Mm-hmm. And his dad is administrator at the school, and he uses the anagram of, Triple H, and HHH is like Humphrey, Hubert Humphrey High School.
Yeah.
Happy Hard Harry. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So, like, the people in this movie, the adults in this movie are really dumb.
Yeah, they couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, and he has all this access to info, because when he's talking online, he's saying stuff that, how would the kids know, or any other parents? You'd have to be a kid of some type of administrator or teacher. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, what I think they're trying to hit home is this Arizona suburb is every parent is completely unaware, or they don't care of their teenager's life. So the movie kind of really hits that home. This movie takes a viewpoint from adolescent, pressure from society, and you don't see a lot of movies like those back then.
No. Well, this school though, like, what type of school is it? It's a hard ass academic school.
Yeah.
And it's not just a normal high school. It's all about academics. And if they have one kid that's out of line or dresses differently, they're working hard to expel that kid or remove them, because the school, later on in the show, they tell you this, that they get kickbacks money wise from the government if they keep a high level of academics at the school. And so the more problem kids they can remove, the better they are off money wise. So.
Yeah, and you kind of really get a feel. Part of Mark's issues is his parents are out of touch. You could tell, though, they were maybe once hippies and were very progressive, but his dad probably used to fight the system, because look at Mark, but he's probably hey, I gotta look after my family, so he took this job and just to secure them, because once you get older, it's not always about fighting the system. It's about also protecting you and your family and your legacy. And if people weren't convinced that the parents are decent people, you just got to go to his office where Mark is getting the information. You can see a Grateful Dead poster, just to let us know that the past of his parents they were cool. And you can kind of see it how they interact. They're like, Mark, let's talk. What's going on?
Yeah.
Most parents are like,
yeah, get the hell out of my office.
Out of my life, so you grow up.
Exactly.
And then we get a little more. We get introduced to Nora a little bit more in the creative writing class, and we see that Mark is actually quite brilliant.
Yeah.
And of course, these types of movies, there's always one teacher that is kind of like gets it, is with it.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you know the teacher there? That's her name's Ellen Green, and she was in Little Shop of Horrors.
Did not know that.
She was Audrey 1.
Okay.
She's the girl that Seymour named after, named the planet.
Okay.
Anyways. So Mark is very bookish, geeky, and like we said. And there's a funny scene. Mark goes to the library and returns a book. And did you guys have those late fees? Because he was charged...
Yes.
25 cents.
Yeah,
I don't remember having late fees.
Yeah, we had late fees, yeah.
Well, you did come from BC.
I didn't accumulate a lot of late fees because I wasn't going to the library very much, so...
Yeah. And this is actually another good scene because Nora, she's on the hunt to find out who this student is because, well, this Hard Harry's kind of touched her in so many ways. As we learn, she's a poet herself.
Yep.
And then he returns a book, and he's actually kind of bad because he returns his book, How to Talk Dirty and Influence People by Lenny Bruce. Have you ever read that book? I've never seen a book like that at my high school.
No.
And I'm kind of thinking, like, what the fuck? Isn't that school, like, run by authoritarian? You figured, like, a book like this would get flagged.
Yeah.
But then I was, like, thinking, well, like you said, they are underfunded. Mm-hmm. So maybe something like this kind of just fell through the cracks.
Yeah, maybe.
I just found that kind of funny. It's like, who's reading this? It's
Yeah.
pretty controversial stuff. who knows?
And you can see by the look in Nora's eyes as she's looking at him like that, you can tell she's, like you said, she's a sleuth in this film a little bit in the beginning, and she's trying to figure out who this guy is. Because he's, like I said, he's got his head down, he's not looking at her. So yeah, she's figuring shit out.
He's not making, he doesn't make much eye contact. And I just like when he leaves, she's like right away like, this could be potential. She then circles his name, and then it's in like the school newspaper. It's like new students, so they have pictures of like a lineup of new students. So she's trying to whittle it down, and then she kind of says, "Well, cute, but nah."
Yeah.
So just letting you know that there's some chemistry later on brewing.
Yeah.
After that, he goes back to where he's comfortable, back on the radio, and I love this scene because he talks about things that he hates. One thing he hates is the 1960s, and it kind of makes sense because his parents are like hippies from the 60s, so there's something there. I don't know why. And he hates school, which is a no-brainer, and he especially hates guidance counselors. Like he has a disdain for them. Yeah, they really do. They're in the forefront of this film, actually, the guidance counselors. And I should also address this. Like in the movie, he supposedly has a voice changer.
Yeah.
Like, but it sounds so much like Christian Slater. It's you barely.
Yeah, it's not much of his.
It doesn't really disguise him, but oh well. So
it's like Clark Kent with the glasses and Superman.
Well, very true. Very
Yeah.
true. He's their version of Superman, I guess, especially to the students. And so he's going on his tirade and goes into his fan mail, and because he went earlier into his father's office, because his father's a bigwig at the administration, he has certain information on students that most people don't, and he phones up the guidance counselor. And this guidance counselor is like your typical trope. He's like a real dwip. He looks like a dork. Like, this is someone you're like, maybe if you had some like IT problems, you go to him, but as far as dealing with people, no. And I like how this guidance counselor, as soon as he phones, he doesn't even know who he's talking to, and right away he starts listing off his achievements. It's like, who does that? You're like, who is this?
He drinks his own piss, and these are the types of guidance counselors that don't really care about the children that they're pretending to guide. You'll see in the film that they really don't care, but they want to let you know that they're a guidance counselor and they're there to help, but really they're not. They're all about themselves.
Yeah, and this goes back to like the movie really highlights how dumb or evil the parents are. Like, I know I keep highlighting that, but this movie's just watching it again, it's like, man, these parents are like, how did they even like get through life? As you see more and more, these are pranks that Harry does. He calls, he like basically phone pranks people, and this is 1990, so back then we had the digital, well, not the digital, the phones, they didn't have caller ID on them,
right?
So you couldn't really trace. You could maybe do star 69.
No, I don't even think that was that.
I think I got that wrong.
No, and most people didn't have, like, maybe if you had a lot of money, you could get a phone with a call display then, I'm not sure, but I know, like, between me and my friends, we just had the old push button, or the rotary if you were really poor.
So he's reading these letters, and I like the one letter he gets where it suggests that there's some incest going on between these two brothers. He calls the number, and it's like a group of girls just giggling and laughing. So the pranker gets pranked himself. And like we said before with the counselor, he basically exposes him on actually helping the school expel this girl that was pregnant. That was a reason for being expelled.
And he doxes the guidance counselor. He basically throws all his info out there, his address and everything. And there's no way they can get back at Mark because the technology just doesn't allow it. So.
No, but in the counselor's defense, he does at the end of the movie kind of redeem himself. But right now in the movie, he kind of really comes off kind of bad. Yeah. And also back to, I think he was talking to, I think it was a scene where the girls, they're asking, because there's some great like quotes in this movie. Like, I like, is it bigger than a baby's arm? And when he's talking to those girls about the incest, he's like, I can smell a lie like a fart in a car. So there's some classic stuff.
Love that line.
I forgot that these were actually in this movie. Yeah, so basically 20 to 30 minutes of this movie, we get a back and forth with him and his radio and his life and the students at the school. So not a lot really happens. But during this one of the students stands out. There's a student, I didn't know at first, I thought Pauly Shore was in this movie. Because there's a student that looks like Pauly Shore.
A little bit.
Crossed with Billy Idol.
Yeah, a little bit. But it wasn't him. You're right. Yeah. I was thinking Pauly Shore too when I saw this guy, and I was like, is that Pauly?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
And we learned that this guy he really doesn't have a real purpose in this movie except being like a supporter of Harry. But he gets kicked out of school for the dress code.
Yeah.
He's a punk rocker. And so that's probably so it kind of shows you that like there's students unfairly getting expelled from the school from this evil principal.
Yep, all because of clout. You know, they want to be the best school in the country and they want all that money they can get. Yeah. So they wean out the reject kids. Yeah,
and you really see at this point in the movie that, and like I addressed this earlier, all the kids spend their nights listening to him, but what you realize is that Mark is very unaware of like his impact. Like he doesn't know he has this, maybe from the emails and like the
snail mails.
Yeah, the snail mails, but he's pretty kind of like oblivious to it in a way.
Yeah, he doesn't realize how much of a reach he really has, and he's reaching out to all the kids, and they're looking up to him for guidance.
Yeah, he kind of calls up a guy. This is where the movie really starts to kind of hit an orbit. He calls up this kid, the suicide guy.
Yeah, he wrote him a letter, right? He reads the letter, and then he calls him up.
And saying, should I kill myself? And, Hard Harry calls him. And you kind of see, like, Hard Harry, he's not taking this seriously.
He's not.
It's all fun and games. And so he kind of starts off the conversation. You can see he's a little bit condescending.
Yeah, he's giving him tough love, and I'm like thinking, oh man, like, you don't realize who you're really talking to, I think, because this kid is serious. Yeah.
And he kind of, talks to him, and then it gets a little bit serious where Hard Harry's like, okay, this guy sounds like it's pretty dark, but he just figured it's a bad night, just like him, so the conversation ends, and he's like, well, now I'm even more depressed, but I'm too depressed to kill myself.
I don't think, Harry realized what he was getting into, and I don't think he was prepared for that phone call, because like you said, like in the beginning he was kind of joking around with the kid and not taking it serious, and then, near the end of the phone call, that's when it really turned.
Yeah, and he doesn't really, we have to remember, like, he is a teenager and stuff, so, like, he's not the person to offer advice.
No, he's not a professional.
No. And I think that's where he's very unaware of his impact and the power he kind of holds around these kids, as we will see as this film goes. So, okay, all that done, he ends his broadcast and everything's fine, but the next day he shows up at school and he learns that a student took their own life, and it happened to be that caller.
Yeah.
And this kind of just hits him. And we also see in the teacher faculty that the teachers have been aware of this Hard Harry, and they've been listening to. And up until this point, he has been kind of just an annoyance. His tapes going around.
Yeah.
But now that a student has killed themselves, they're like, okay,
he's a target now.
And like most things, like people do in society, we look for something to kind of lay the blame on for things that actually so many other issues.
Yeah. Well, while this is happening at school, while they're trying to figure out who this pirate radio guy is, they're obviously thinking that he's the reason for the suicide, and then the media gets a hold of it, and as usual, what does the media do? They blame the independent media or music for suicide.
CNN.
Yeah, anyone who's independent, not part of the big the big shows, they like to squash them really quickly. And I'll call back to a time in the 80s. 2 days before Christmas in 1985, a pair of young Nevada men shot themselves after listening to albums by the heavy metal band Judas Priest. Today, the rock group and CBS Records went on trial in Washoe County District Court here, accused by the men's families of having driven them to suicide. So this really does resonate in real life. They take music that they don't agree with, and they chalk it up as a vehicle for suicide, which is just ridiculous. But so this film is actually, quite on par with real life a little bit.
Yeah, you really see that, and not to go off the rails too much, but the Night Stalker serial killer Robert Rodriguez, yeah, he when he was in the court and stuff, a lot of times you'd see pictures of him wearing AC/DC hat. So a lot of the vitriol towards that was that heavy metal music, such as AC/DC music, was leading people to commit these types
it's just ridiculous.
So this movie kind of highlights that in its own way. So after this revelation with Mark, he's appalled, and like guilt is running all over him, and I think doesn't Nora kind of find him leaving by himself, or I think I'm getting ahead of myself. But so the next night he goes home and he goes on air and he's like, I'm done, I'm not doing this no more, that's it. As soon as he's done, what happens? He switches it off. And then, of course, like an impulsive teenager, he switches it back on, because as Turk, you and I have highlighted, this is his shield. He feels safe behind that microphone. Yeah. So he can't quit. It's like Batman and Bruce Wayne. Mm-hmm. He can't quit being Batman.
That's right.
He has to be Batman. And Mark has to be Hard Harry.
That's right, yeah.
And, he is conflicted. And at this point, he goes on this crazy monologue. If you're going, and he says some great stuff, I'm going to quote, if you're going to do something crazy, it's better than killing yourself, which is, I agree with, though doing something crazy with these impressionable, angst teenagers, probably also not the best advice. So everyone in the now starts to go crazy. The popular chick with the straight A's, which is funny, like, seeing that popular chick now, to me, she'd be like a person when I went to school that was in, like, a band, like, played in the school band, as opposed to being a prep. Yeah. Just the way she dressed and kind of acted, she was, but anyways, she goes and throw, what does she put in her microwave? There's, like, this, it's basically a montage scene of all these students going crazy. Some people even got, like, a hold of a giant penis in this. So, I gotta ask a question here. I know it's like a little suburb there in Arizona, but back then, were people like just like running around with giant penis statues? What?
Maybe in Middle America? I don't know, man, but not up here.
Like who would have access to that?
I don't know. That's pretty funny though.
Yeah, so, yeah. And this popular girl is like, she puts like a bunch of jewelry, and then not only does she just put her shit in there, she sits right in front of the microwave as it blows up.
Yeah, not a good thing to do there. If you're trying to blow the shit up, I'd get out of there.
Yeah. So you guess, with the self-destruction by these students, who's going to get the blame?
She ended up like hurting her arm, I think, in that, right? In that explosion. I think she burnt her arm or something. I remember seeing some bandages on her arm after. Yeah. And
up until this point, all this other stuff with these students, even the kid, and this just shows you like how crappy the parents and the student, not the student body, but the teaching, like the school itself, the administration, they don't really give a shit until the valedictorian girl has problems. Now they're bringing in the FCC or FAC or what?
FCC, I think, yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, especially the principal. Like, if you want to see a, like, twirling your mustache type of villain, is this chick. And her voice was so familiar to me that she was the sister of those rich millionaires in Superman 3. I don't know. Anyways,
wow, I would not have.
I don't know her name, but I'm like, where she looks. And then I had to do some. I don't know. It's crazy. Yeah. So she's just pure evil.
Well, you can really see that the kids are cracking under the pressure from the expectations of the parents.
Yeah, because like the expectations are high. This school, because they want to have their SAT scores high, and all these other students are getting expelled for just bad grades. Like, if you're failing math, you're gone.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how they get away with it. Like, just expelling their kids like that. Because even back then, teachers did not have that type of autonomy to make those decisions.
Well, yeah, this is a movie, so we have to give a little bit of leeway there.
Yeah, so, and the parents don't seem to really care what's happening to their kids.
No, I guess it's fair to say that it's not too far-fetched that some schools could be corrupt. I believe it. It could happen.
Like, I mean, these like the VP and the principal are so evil that the VP in the movie punches a kid on school property. So like,
yeah,
holy cow, man! Yeah. Like in our day, I think they rarely had the strap. So yeah,
no, that would have been more back in the 70s. I think the strap was in the 70s. Yeah. Ruler sticks were in the 80s. I know that.
Yeah, and so Nora, of course, is still on the case trying to figure this guy out, and through his podcast, as we said, Mark kind of really gives himself away, because he even says in his screen that he sits on the stairs eating his lunch and reading his book by himself.
Yeah, that's the one where it's like, hey, dude, what are you doing? They're going to find you now.
You may as well say, I wear glasses and a blue shirt.
Yeah.
He gives like so many hints away that it's no one else can get it except Nora. But this helps Nora stand out. Yeah. So she confronts him there. And I like what she kind of does, because he's trying to get away and all this, but she asks him for gum. And what does he give her? That blackjack gum, and right there. And of course, he bails. He's out of there.
Yeah.
Get away from me.
Yeah. He couldn't handle it.
Yeah. And then at this point, like you alluded to, the news station has taken notice. There's that reporter. Like, talk about Shepherd.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
And like, this guy would give up his own mother to get a news.
You know that guy from Unsolved Mysteries back in the day? It sounded like he tried to emulate him as a news reporter as he was talking about the news.
Yeah.
It really did. I was like, hey, wait a minute, that sounds like someone I would know.
Yeah. And when you see that Shepherd there, from this point on, he's at that school 24 hours.
Yeah.
And 24/7. There's nothing else happening in this Arizona.
Apparently not.
Yeah. And of course, he runs into the Pauly Shore punk, who wants to be interviewed, and he's throwing smoke bombs. So
yeah.
And that's where he gets taken in by the VP and gets beat up.
Yeah.
So this poor guy, he just wants an education.
I think around that time there was a scene where it showed all the kids, like, I think it was lunch break or something, and they were playing music on their ghetto blaster, and they're all outside dancing. And then not the principal, but that one guy who was really physical with the kids, that big, maybe a gym teacher type guy, he was like, "Hey, you kids, this is a privilege, you can't be like messing this up, with the dancing." And it really reminded me of the movie Footloose, because, Footloose was all about, like, you can't dance, that's the devil's, stuff. So, yeah, it was the same stuff. Yeah, it was
kind of retro to the Footloose there. I thought it kind of captured that essence there.
Yeah.
So, of course, now we got the cops, the feds are all interested in this Triple H, and Mark, he's still got to go get his letters. The heat is there, but he's got to get his letters, because he's got to get his fix. And so he's there, the cop shows up, also Shepherd, just like that, he appears at this post office.
Yeah, somehow we got a tracker or something.
Yeah. And like, the cop that shows up there, it's not just a beat cop, it's a detective. Like, what is happening in this town? Like, like, is it like nothing happens there? So there's like there's this big fuss over this guy that talks on a ham radio.
Yeah,
like, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's nuts.
Yeah, and I like how, like, they're trying to, like, reveal, like, who has the mailbox, and we find out it's rented to Chuck U. Farley. So,
I love it.
Like,
I love
F you.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So, and of course, Hard Harry has to go back to podcasting. Of course, not podcasting, but back to his radio station. And he calls the counselor, and of course, at this point, the counselor and the cops, they're all triangulating, and they're going to try to get this guy.
Yeah.
And of course, Hard Harry, he has a phone transmitter placed in a shed.
Not at his house, at a neighbor's house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, So he could be anywhere within 1,000 yards.
That's right.
Like, I love how lazy these cops are. Oh, 1,000 yards. We're done.
We're never finding him.
We're never finding him. This is it. You know, like he's transmitting from his neighbors, basically.
Yeah. It's like a few blocks. Like, it's not that much.
And so you can probably tell these people that have it in their shed do not do any like lawn upkeep or anything because like that transmitter, when you see it, it's like in plain sight. Like, you would notice this beeping.
There's almost nothing else in that shed other than the transmitter. There's maybe a shovel, I think. Maybe that's about it.
Yeah. So things are, and also like, what is he? This battery like is cordless. Like, so does Mark? I was thinking, does he go every night or every so often? He changes the batteries on this transmitter. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know movie logic.
Like, yeah.
Like, that's a lot of work for a guy to be. You know, I guess if you want to be anonymous.
Yeah, it's probably just something that didn't need to be shown. You know, every day.
Yeah. So at this point, well, it's time to have a PTA meeting at the school. So we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
And the town wants to fry this guy.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, they want to compete with this kid because they realize now that all the kids are listening to him for guidance, you know, and they're talking to him. So now all of a sudden the guidance counselor's like, oh, I'm gonna open up this open door society where you can come on in, and, you know, like, just to try and combat this independent guy on his own, right? Like, it's just a joke. It really is.
And then, of course, Popular Girl shows up just to, you know, sway things over and tell them that this is not Harry's fault. It's your fault. You're not listening to us. Yeah. I noticed a continuity error when she walks in there. Her face is like really beat up, but then when she goes outside and she's like gets close to the camera, she doesn't look that beat up. Like, even her makeup, she doesn't have like ooh, someone fell asleep in the makeup
department,
hair department. Okay, but still, so she goes crazy. So you can just see for the parents, like, and everyone around confirms that these kids are out of control, and it's all because of Harry.
Yeah.
So of course Mark tells his mom he's leaving. And then she says, "I know why you're going." And he's like, the gig is up. Yeah. But of course, the parents still don't know.
Yeah, because she assumed he was going to go listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at this point, you're like, all right, Mom and Dad, we've given you enough time in this movie. You just moved. This person has access to, like, the files. Radio hand. You gave him a radio hand. His dad works at the school board. Like, come on, get your shit together. But I guess, you know, blind love, right? To your kid.
That's right. My baby would never do that.
So Harry's now goes home, and he's burning things in the barbecue, all of his evidence. And I just love how he has the barbecue going. The barbecues that time had a bunch of propane tanks all around them.
Yeah.
And he's shooting like lighter fluid.
Kerosene.
Kerosene.
Yeah, whatever. Just like Homer Simpson, he like squirts it into the barbecue. Each piece of paper he throws in the barbecue, he squirts it. Like, come on, dude, you don't need that much kerosene.
He's just squirting into this.
That's a lot.
and of course Nora, like, she confronts him.
Yeah.
She kind of does this a lot throughout the movie. Like, she kind of calls him on his bullshit. Like, she's a little bit kind of, I don't want to say creepy, but her spying on people, like, she follows him everywhere.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. But hey, I mean, she wants to find out who this guy is.
Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, good stuff. But of course, Harry, he's, you know, she really does egg him on in this movie. Like, you notice that? Like, he's always trying to, like, I'm done. You can't quit. We need you.
Yeah.
It's like, the more he kind of broadcasts, the worse it kind of gets.
Yeah.
For him and people around him. But so she kind of eggs him on, but I don't think he needs much because he can't help it.
No,
he goes right back to broadcasting. And of course, parents come home.
Yes.
and they go downstairs. And I just love how they're like, open the door. And it, like, takes forever. It's like, oh, just a minute.
Yeah, he's cleaning up. He's trying to hide the equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, hurry up. Like, they're so impatient. Like 1 second goes by and they're banging on the door. Like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and
what if he was in his room, like, in his underwear? Like, you're not going to answer the door in your underwear to your parents. You're like, oh, just wait a minute. Let me, get some clothes on or something.
Like, and you're like thinking, I wonder if he forgot, like, hopefully he turned off, like, his soundboard or all that, because people could have heard all this.
They could have.
We're assuming.
He did switch it off, I think. Yeah.
I think he did.
Yeah.
But you're like, ooh, it's a good thing he didn't forget that.
Yeah.
And then they confront him, so he's in big doo-doo, but Nora to the rescue, she reveals herself. And of course, the parents were happy to see her there.
Yeah, they were, because they assumed that he couldn't, be with anybody or have an interest in women like that or girls, right? So when Nora pops out and his dad is like just an ear-to-ear grin on his face going, oh, that's my boy. He's got a girl in his room. I love it.
Oh, yeah. Like, because throughout the movie, they're like, they've asked about his, like, relationship status, and they're probably wondering, well, like, what's wrong with my kids? So they really want him to get laid.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, no, we'll leave you guys alone now. We're gonna go. They're like, I wish my parents were like that if I had a chick over. Hell no.
His dad, you dirty dog.
Yeah.
He says, you dirty dog. So, okay, now the parents go upstairs and they get turned on by all this, which is kind of odd. So they go upstairs and bone. And this is the scene where Harry takes off his shirt, and Nora does too. So
yes, she does.
We need a shirtless scene here.
Yeah, no, I was kind of conflicted with this scene. Watching it for the second time, not for the first time, but for the second time, being an adult watching the scene, and the kids presumably being of high school age.
Right.
Nora being, I'm assuming, 17 or younger, being topless, was like, I don't know how to feel about this scene as an adult, because she's a young kid. Okay, she's topless, but when I watched it the first time at 14, it was probably pretty cool.
Well, yeah, we were younger when we saw this movie, and probably the actor and the actresses, they were probably older than high school students. So, but it is a little bit weird watching that scene now. That one didn't resonate. Scene with his high school kids. So yeah, it felt weird watching it, but those were the movies kind of back then.
That's right.
They did show kind of skin. So
yep.
Moving on, because the parents were moving on for sure.
Yes, they were.
So, at this point, we get introduced to the FCC guy. I know I butchered that. He comes all the way from Washington for Hard Harry in a limo.
This is national news here.
He's got a limo. He got a bunch of FCC vans.
Yep.
Like, it's getting crazy. And then, well, after that, Harry, he's all happy now because, he met Nora. Nora kind of completes him. She's kind of filling a hole for him. So you see a shift in him with Nora there. Because right after that, he's happy,
Yeah. He's forgot about all his friends on the East Coast now. That's for sure.
But back at school, I like their choice of clothes, because for the most part, Mark just wears these t-shirts and these jeans, but now he's wearing kind of like a prep collared shirt.
Yeah, he's dressing a little better.
I remember wearing those back then.
Yeah, me too.
And even her. So you're like, well, what's going on? And she's upset because she got expelled. She's part of the naughty list there. Yep. So she's failing math, and you're like, but she's kind of so smart and clever, but you're like, yeah, but she's kind of like a poet, artsy person. So
yeah, I can see it.
See something like that might not, interest her. So you're like, now she's all upset. And they're all kind of, because they got the FCC there, things are kind of ramping up. All the teenagers, the ones that have been expelled or still going there, are gathering outside the field, because this has drawn so many people, right?
Yeah.
I like this part, they even have a dummy of the principal that they got like a noose around it and they light it on fire. Holy cow, awesome. Man. These kids are intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so things are really escalating, and it's up to Mark to kind of save the day.
Yes.
Yeah. Like so again, this town's getting messed up.
Yeah, no, he's got the responsibility to reel it in.
Yeah. They're spray painting Talk Hard. And on the grass, they actually spray paint Talk Hard on the grass.
They did.
What's the point of doing that?
Well, I mean, it lasts a long time until you cut it. So it's a good message. I mean, you could either do that or use lime.
I guess. I don't know. I just didn't seem the smartest idea.
Oh, well.
But hey, you got to get the message out there. You got to talk hard.
Yep.
Yeah. So then Harry, of course, steals his mom's Jeep and he rigs it up so he can podcast.
Yeah. So Nora's driving.
Yes. We don't know if she has a license. We will assume she does.
Who cares? We'll assume.
And I love how like this guy from Washington, the FCC, is telling them to pull people over randomly. Like, really, what all they can do is like issue a ticket.
Yeah.
Like, they don't have that type of power. Like,
No.
I just love that. Like
A little bit of overreaching.
Yeah, or just shut down his radio station.
Yeah.
And they got helicopters.
A freaking heli.
Yeah, they got
a freaking heli to
helicopters.
chase him down.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus.
Yeah, like, so Mark is in over his head here. They got the helicopter, they got the FCC.
Yeah.
Who knows who else is coming? Oh, they got, the reporter who is there.
Yeah.
So they're getting chased, and he's broadcasting and rallying everybody up, so it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Then it kind of gets to the point they pull up to the school property, and his voice changer breaks, and he disconnects, so now the gig's kind of up.
Yeah, now where is everybody gathered at? They're gathered at the
football
baseball.
field.
Is
Yeah,
it
the
football or
baseball
diamond, I think? Yeah.
Field.
Yeah.
Everybody's
And they're
there.
all still waiting for the 10 o'clock to come around. And
Yeah.
And then finally he shows up in person, right?
Yeah, because at first he's like, I can't do this. And so they're like, no, Harry. And they're upset. But then he's like, screw it.
Yeah.
I'm this far. Let's do it. So, yeah. And he actually has a really good line here where he's like, we are all messed up. Everyone kind of has a moment to reflect on that in the movie.
Yep.
When he's talking this and stuff, like even the evil principal, she's like, But, when she starts thinking about her numbers, that all changed. Then, the helicopter, with the T-1000 in it, I'm presuming, shows up.
Yeah. Definitely T-1000.
And the creative writer teacher kind of comes back. And actually, we kind of skipped over this, but she's, was the one constant adult there that got it. I always got the impression she knew that Mark was Harry.
I don't know. I don't know if I got that from the film. I'm not sure. It's hard to say.
Well, it's hard to say, but where I kind of saw it, where I think I see it, is when she gets sacked.
Yeah.
And she goes up to him and says, like, I failed, basically, I tried to make change, I can't. But why would she go up to him specifically to tell him that? That's where I'm like,
maybe.
And also, she was, listening to his radio station. She's drinking wine.
She was. That's right.
Getting funky, laughing.
Yeah.
So, she's cool. I like this teacher.
She seemed like a really cool teacher.
Yeah, cool teacher. And though, when she got fired, I just love how, usually when you get fired, you get kind of escorted off the premise. Nah, you're fired. And then she decided, I'm going to go into the restricted files room. And she starts pulling out
Starts exposing the school. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the good teacher gets the principal fired.
Yep.
Or gets her on blast because, like I said, she finds these incriminating records that exposes the evil principal and VP, and that they got rid of students to keep grade point average up to get funding for the school.
That's right.
That comes all out. And of course, the evil villain that the principal is, I can't remember her name in the movie, so we're just going to call her Evelyn.
Yeah.
Mark, she's like, well, what are you going to do about it? I can do whatever I want. And of course, Mark's dad now comes through because he's actually, he has the powers and suspends her or fires her. And at this point, Mark finally gets caught and he gets arrested.
Yes, he does.
Even though he never, I always found the worst thing that really could happen to him is valuation, loss of radio station. That's the worst thing that really could happen to him.
Yeah.
In this. Yeah. And he never really did anything illegal, really, per se. Can you be arrested for that? Driving around with a tape deck in your vehicle,
Well, okay, but if he was stealing, if he was using a frequency that you're not allowed, I'm assuming you had to pay for your frequencies.
Okay, so he pays for the frequency, and he also gets like banned like for a year or a lifetime ban by the FCC.
Yeah,
and that's it. Okay.
I don't know what legal ramifications.
But as far as like real like criminal, like
I don't know.
Like even with leading that kid to suicide, he never did. The only thing he didn't say was don't do it. He didn't try to, talk him out of it, but he didn't take it seriously. So because they in the movie they were saying with the cops and all them that he's being charged with like accessory towards murder or suicide.
See, that's just a ridiculous. That's a bogus charge.
Yeah. And yeah, so you can imagine. I can imagine like if this was like today, like the lawsuit, like would be against like the police, the school, and all that because like arresting him and doing all that. Like you can imagine all those kids, the way they were treated.
It exposes the dark side of the school.
It really does. It really kind of shows that. So, and then of course, Hard Harry has one parting line. He's like, "Talk hard." And then it kind of basically freezes the movie.
It's a great message. It entices kids to get out there and speak your mind, as we're doing right now. Like this is free speech.
It's a very bittersweet ending, and because it uncovers a scheme, then you see other students that they start kind of podcasting or empowering them to like speak out. And you hear a bunch of people, receivers and radios and all these kids, this is that, and
all the girls they're broadcasting from their homes and they're talking now, and so they're carrying on his legacy. I thought it was great.
Very, very good stuff. A great movie.
It's got a good message.
It's got a really good message. And now after watching it again, and this is like the second time I watched it, and I'll probably want to watch it again. This movie still holds up really good because teenagers today are still fucked up and rebellious as ever.
Yep.
There's actually more platforms for them to be there. This movie speaks well on alienation, especially of adolescents and stuff, and for people to be more cognizant of young people and people in general. And maybe that's why like stuff like this is, the nostalgia. This movie, again, like I said, what I still take from it is it doesn't insult your intelligence.
No, it lets you think a little bit.
Yeah. And, and it kind of challenges you and to think, because like Harry himself, he's very flawed.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, no, it's a really good movie. So we're on a rating score, Mr. Turk. How many Wild Cherry Diet Pepsi or Blackjack Gum would you give? Out of 5.
Out of 5.
No.
I would say I would. Yeah, I mean, I give it a 3.5, 3.5 Wild Cherry Pepsis.
Okay.
Just like the message and the story is pretty good, but I mean, there are a lot. Like the plot wasn't super thick in this movie. It was very simple to watch. It just brought back a lot of nostalgia. It's an easy watch. So it's not like there were any like shocking revelations in this film. So I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
Okay, I think that's a real good rating system for this movie. I'm gonna give it 3 Wild Cherry Diet Pepsis, but I'm gonna throw in half a stick of Blackjack Gum.
Hey, throw in a half stick for me too. I'll give it.
Yeah, but it's not quite at the level or anywhere near like The Breakfast Club as a movie.
Yeah,
but I think, like I said here, a lot of the themes in this movie still holds up for today.
Yeah.
And it really makes you like appreciate Christian Slater. I know some people kind of will criticize him, but I've always enjoyed him. I remember this, like I said, watching him the first time I was introduced to him was in The Wizard, and then he was in Cuffs.
Cuffs, that was good.
That was a great show, and then he went on to he went on to Interview with the Vampire. So he was in a lot. One of your favorite movies, Broken Arrow.
Yes. It's just a crazy movie, but I thought he was quite charming in that one too.
And I enjoyed him in Young Guns.
Yeah, absolutely.
He kind of played and he was also in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yeah, he was awesome in that one. Yeah,
he was really good. I enjoyed him. And then Samantha Mathis, I don't really know her in too many things. She was in the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Man, good thing you told me because I never really picked that out.
She actually was also in Broken Arrow. I don't remember that, and I saw that movie.
She's Park Ranger?
I believe she is.
That Christian Slater end up falling in love with at the end? She might have been the Park Ranger. I bet. Oh, man, that's crazy.
Yeah. And she was
a reunion. Awesome.
Kind of a reunion. She was in American Psycho, The Punisher, and she actually. One thing I really noticed in this movie, they had really good chemistry.
They did.
And there's a reason for that, that actually when they were filming this movie, they were in a year-long relationship at that point.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what's even more kind of like, I don't want to say ironic, but she dated River Phoenix.
Yeah.
And she dated him up until he died.
Okay.
And how there's another connection there that River Phoenix was actually going to star in Interview with the Vampire to play the interviewer that interviews the Brad Pitt Louise character. So when he died before the film. Christian Slater actually was cast in there. So I thought that was some irony.
That is interesting.
Irony.
That's interesting.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And I think they were together in Ferngully. Both of them have really good chemistry. So yeah. But I have not seen her in anything recently. But Christian Slater, you see him around a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in anything recently, but I haven't really been looking for him either.
Mm-hmm. Okay, guys. Well, we really enjoyed watching this movie again. It brought back a lot of memories, not just like from the movie itself, but just like our own life, going to school and growing up. This kind of still resonates with us. I think this can resonate with people today, like we said, and especially people that are in our age category. We recommend, if you're looking to watch something familiar, give this one another shot. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Go out there and find it somewhere. I don't know if you can find it on any streaming service, but whatever you can do to look this movie up, go and get it.
And another thing is, I want to highlight is the soundtrack in this movie. There is some great music that is played throughout the movie, and it's a great soundtrack. And like, this is the movie that introduced me to Leonard Cohen. Like, this was the movie. But up until then, I didn't know who Leonard Cohen is, and this was the movie. And I was like talking to my brother, and as soon as we're talking about this movie, he's like, Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, and all the Leonard Cohen fans are probably screaming at you, going, "How can you not know who Leonard Cohen is?"
Well, in my defense, this was in 1990. Yeah. And I was probably like, what, 10?
Yeah, so Leonard's
maybe
not
10, 11.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, I was kind of disillusioned before I listened to him, but it's a great soundtrack, and why I kind of want to talk a little bit about that. In the 90s, so many movies, the soundtrack was a really big vehicle for the release of the film. And like, a lot of artists would either have existing stuff or they'd write new stuff. Because not like just this movie, but a movie like The Crow. The movie was heavily marketed with the soundtrack, the music videos. Yeah. And you don't see that today. And like we were kind of discussing with our Goonies retro podcast, the same thing is with this movie, is that the soundtrack itself is like just as important as the movie.
Yep.
So on that note, that wraps up our retro roundtable of Pump Up the Volume. We hope all of you have enjoyed both Turk and I discussion on this, and remember to talk hard. And on that note, you can find us on social media platforms such as YouTube. We are on Podbean. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Amazon Music. And we're also on Audible. And we also have a Twitter account. So if you are bored and you want to interact with us basic schmoes from the prairie, we'd love to hear from you. And we're going to probably have an email out there so if you want to send the email and get in touch with us pretty soon.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks. Bye.
I am inside each and every single one of you. Just look in, and I will be there, waving out at you, naked, wearing only the cock ring.